If you were here on Wednesday night, you know that I've been digging in Proverbs just personally in my personal study for a while. And Proverbs 4 talks about wisdom and how wisdom is supreme. And so in Proverbs 4, I've been digging through this wisdom literature. And so one of the things that I have to admit is that as I have read this in the past, I have associated wisdom with intellectual knowledge. And so many of us have a tendency to believe, and there's nothing wrong with it. Please don't misunderstand how I contextualize this beginning this morning, but there's nothing wrong with growing up, going to pre-K, doing kindergarten. Robert Fulghum wrote a book that said everything I needed to know in life I learned in kindergarten. And I do believe that in many, many ways. I think there's a lot of things that we learn in kindergarten that maybe we, for some reason or another, I love the fact that you said this morning is preparing you to be a parent, because a lot of times parents don't do an incredible job at preparing kids when they're 1 through 4. They just do a good job of making sure they don't kill themselves or someone else or damage the furniture and those kind of things. And we have a tendency to kind of move on down the road thinking they're going to get older and they're going to begin to understand, because I have some very, very good friends and spent some time at their house when their child was 1, 2, 3, and 4 years old, and remember very, very clearly them taking their son over, and their son had just broken a glass out of anger and thrown it on the floor intentionally at about 3 years old, and they took him over and they separated him from the group, and they talked with him very slowly and casually and calmly and very sweetly, and told him that he had done wrong and this was not good and that we did not want to see that happen again. And I was thinking at the time, of course, for me in my life, it would have been, I just hope he doesn't kill me as he's beating me with this belt. And many of you probably grew up in a very similar circumstance. And I don't think my dad ever had plans of killing me. But that fear doesn't really hurt people that much sometimes. It's a choice of, am I going to live or die here? And I think I probably might not do that again. I don't mean to say that my dad was an abuser. I just mean to say that in regard to, I learned that there were some things that you do and there are some things you don't do. And if you do them, you will accept the consequences of doing them. And if you don't do them, you accept the praise of not having that done. And there was a point that you understand that it didn't take a college degree to understand I'm learning wisdom at 3 years old. And at 3 years old, I'm learning these are the things I can do and some of these things I can't do. And so therefore, I begin to understand. And sometimes, as we talked about on Wednesday night, we said, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. And our own understanding is simply those things that we have a tendency to learn over time, and those things are good. But wisdom is something greater than just understanding. And so I want you to have that understanding with me this morning, that wisdom is greater than just intellectual knowledge. Wisdom is what is being directed here in what I may not even understand. So Dr. Leroy Sewell, and I would say this if he were here. He has passed away some 25 years ago now. The reason I say this, I would say that if he were here, was because I was in high school when he was the senior pastor at First Methodist Church in Muskogee, and my dad was the associate pastor. And so we spent a lot of time at their house. Leroy and Fadel were wonderful people. And Leroy had not honorary nor bestowed doctorates. He had 3 doctorates in education, one in psychology, and another, I believe, in physics. Was an incredibly brilliant man. However, I was in high school, and my dad told me on a Saturday morning, hey, I've got some things I have to do. I need you to go over to Leroy's house and fix and change a tire. And I thought to myself, I wonder why I have to go to Leroy's house to change a tire. And when I get over there, I find that he's in his work clothes. He's not in, my first thought was, there is literally a possibility he was dressed and just couldn't. Leroy had never changed a tire. He's an incredibly brilliant man. And so it's kind of the joke. I know a lot of people that are really, really smart, but don't know how to change a tire. And wisdom is watching someone change a tire and then thinking, that might be something I could use later in my life. I've changed a lot of tires. And sometimes I've changed tires for people that was not a matter of they didn't know how to change a tire. It was just appropriate that I do it instead of them do it. I love the Oklahoma Highway Patrol for the people that stop on the side of the road, and what you see generally, if there is a highway patrolman there and someone has got a problem with a tire, it's the highway patrolman that's actually doing the work. And I love that. And it's not that the fact that the highway patrolman gets out of the car and says, do you know how to change a tire? No, it's the appropriate thing to do. And so wisdom is different than just, and I want to say this carefully because we have a lot of degrees in the room, it's more than just book knowledge. For book knowledge is very, very, very important, and I take nothing back from that. I love the fact that 4 of our 5 children all have degrees. I love that. I have no problem with that. I think it's great. But wisdom. You see, it was Solomon who, in his prayer before the Lord, said, Lord, give me wisdom. And he was honored for that. He didn't say, Lord, I want to know. Solomon never went to school. I just want you to know that. I mean, you can go back and look. He never went to school. He went to the school of watching his dad. And his dad was a great success and a great failure. And so a lot of times we sometimes struggle with this whole idea of wisdom. And so Proverbs 4 is talking about wisdom. But I'm going to pick up the 18th verse. You had to have the context of what is being said here. The path of the righteous is like the first gleam of dawn, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. But the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. My son, pay attention to what I say. Listen closely to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart. For they are life to those who find them and health to a man's whole body. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Put away perversity from your mouth. Keep corrupt talk from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Make level paths for your feet, and take only ways that are firm. Do not swerve to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. Beloved, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So as we look at this 23rd verse, this is Solomon. He's actually talking to his own son, and he's saying, these are the things that you need to know. Above all else, guard your heart. It was Thursday night, and I didn't say anything in the pre-thing because, as Elizabeth said, one of the things that happens is if we're at a home game, Joshua's up in the booth, he's next to me in his own booth over there, and he's announcing, and Elizabeth's down on the track, and she's handling 40 people that are running around acting crazy, and you do a great job at that. But on Thursday night, it was only like 15 or so that were down there, and we're doing. I do the live stream announcing, so I'm live streaming to millions of people all over the world, probably 400. But you want to think that I'm talking to millions, But I'm live streaming to like 400 people or 500 people, depending upon how many are on Facebook and how many are on YouTube and how many are just listening to the straight live stream or watching the straight live stream. And so all of that is going on, and I'm actually announcing the starting lineups, and I get this tap on my shoulder, and I look up in the stands, and sure enough, I see the people up there doing CPR on a person in the stands, and so in the midst of that, your brain begins to kind of spin because you're thinking, number one, we don't want that on the live stream. I mean, obviously, you don't want to just be, hey, go up there, we got something cool happening in the stands. That's not what you do, and so we're just deciding what we're going to do, and so basically, I get done with the starting lineups and immediately go to commercial because. I need a minute. I need to be thinking, what do I do here? How does this work? And because there are times in your life that you're unprepared for. There are just times in your life you're unprepared for. And you're going to run into those things whether you're 75 or whether you're 20. It doesn't really matter. We love pointing out the fact that, those kids back there in the back, they don't know anything. They don't know what's going on. Yet we had one child this morning, and I don't mean to call you a child in a negative way. I mean to call you a child in a beautiful way, because all of us wish we were children again. And but we have a child this morning that says something that all of us are. I would almost guarantee you there's someone here this morning that thought while she was speaking, she'll grow up and she'll lose that joy, and it'll all be okay, and we'll all be together. I hate to say that way, but I really believe that there's a time in life that we all get so jaded that we forget that the joy of the Lord is your strength. It is. And we should have that joy. We should have so much joy that we could literally say on any given Sunday morning, do you know what? I have such joy in my heart. I just love my family. I love being here. I love being a part of this. I love my life. Did you hear what she said this morning? Sorry to raise my voice, but some of y'all don't hear very well. Did you hear what she said this morning? I love my life. I love the way it is right now. Oh my God. Guard your heart. Guard your heart doesn't mean anything is going to be any different the rest of your life. We should all guard our hearts. And so, on Thursday night, the way that God challenged me was I came back, I said we have a medical emergency in the stands, and so we're going to be playing a few commercials here, and then we're going to come back with the game because, intellectually, I know that this is a district game, and I know that we don't have open dates. These are all intellectual things that you think of, and I know that we don't have any open dates, and so I really pretty much surmise we're going to play this game. It really doesn't matter what happens up in the stands. That we're going to put it off a little bit. We're going to start at 7:30 instead of start at 7. But we're going to play this game because that's what we do, and it's football, and football in Oklahoma reigns supreme. And so we're going to do that, and so I come back and I say, the game is going to be delayed, and we do have a medical emergency in the stands, and we want you to know that. And so when that all gets settled, we're gonna come back, and so we start playing commercials, and on Facebook there are some people that begin to text because they didn't hear that. And they begin to send words out on Facebook. What the heck are they doing? All they're doing is playing commercials. When's the game going to start? What's going on over there? And the guy that actually owns Oklahoma Sports Network, he and I talked the next morning, and this is what he says. He says, I hope they find out that she passed away. I mean, isn't that kind of our thought? Well, I kind of hope that they find out that she passed away, because then they'll feel bad about the way they acted. That's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. Well, my problem was I'm up in the booth, just like Elizabeth said, and I haven't said anything to her about this or anybody else, but I'm up in the booth, and as all this is going on, my heart is, I need to go. I'm a run-to person. I'm never a run-away-from person, and I always have been. And I need to go, and not to help with chest compressions. That was not my thing at that moment. I need to go because there are people that are hurting, and I want to be down there, and I want to be in the midst of that and so all I could do was text, hey, if they need anything, you let them know, to one of the athletic directors that's down there on the field. If there's anything that I can do, please let me know. And then it came to me, you know what, the opportunity is here. The opportunity is here to talk to those 400 or 500 that are out there watching. That there are things that are more important than football. And so we come back, and I didn't even get the opportunity to begin to even share that, because something happened that night that I want you to know about, because wisdom prevails. And that's what Solomon is saying here to his son. Wisdom prevails. We're going to talk about guard your heart, because guard your heart is so important to your wisdom prevailing. But wisdom prevails, and so the very first thing that we see is we come back for a moment, and we're going to do the coin toss, because that's what happens in football, is you toss a coin to decide who's going to get the ball first and how that's going to play out. And the lead referee is named Niles. I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Niles. And the lead referee gets the guys in from Carl Albert coming in from the north side, and Southeast coming in from the south side, and they gather there in the middle, and he doesn't tell them about the coin toss. He doesn't go into all the things that we're going to have a clean game, and guys, if you hear the whistle blow, stop, and all the things that you do at the coin toss. Do you know what he does at the coin toss? He asks the young men to remove their helmets. And there he reaches out, one on one side and one on the other, as they put their arms around their own players. And he reaches out and he has a prayer at the coin toss of the football game. You see, that man didn't learn that in the book. He didn't get that from watching other referees do their job, because, folks, I've been to a lot of football games, and I have never seen a referee pray at the coin toss. The guy next to me has been 40 years a coach in football, and I said, have you ever seen that? No. And he's been to a lot of games. You see, because life comes before our games. I was sitting here this morning, and the song was playing, and the Holy Spirit just reminded me of a little bit more in regard to this life, was that with all of the energy that went into CPR for over 20 minutes, including 6 shocks in the process, just getting her to the ambulance. She and God were already face to face, looking at each other and recognizing that you've come home. But boy, we worked diligently. I say that to go into just a brief little announcement. So, the brief little announcement that I have is this. Do you know what the life expectancy of a person was in Jesus' time?
40s.
Both of you are basically correct, depending upon where you lived. In the Holy Land, it was about 33. Isn't that interesting? 33. In other words, Jesus died on the year that was his life expectancy. 33 years old. Never thought about that until this week as I began to kind of dig into this after the time that we had shared on Thursday night. If you lived in Rome or another place where food was a little more available and water was a little more available, your life expectancy was about 40. And that is, that's just one of those things that we need to kind of take grasp of a little bit. Now, what is the life expectancy today of a U.S. citizen?
80 for women, 75 for men.
75 about for men, about 80 for women. It's somewhere right in there. It kind of changes every now and then as we go. And so we have doubled, we have more than doubled the life expectancy. And I had to ask myself the question, and don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that we're living longer. I mean, because basically from Christ's time, I'm like double what I should be. That's good. I mean, I'm not dead yet, and that's wonderful. The reason I say all this is to say we have come so far, and for good reason. Don't get me wrong. I'm not preaching a cult here, folks. We've come so far for a reason. We have really worked on making our lives last longer. And then it brings me back to the question then, because again, you wouldn't write these things in books, but it brings me back to the question again. I wonder why we are so desperate to hang on. So, because see, that's where it comes into where people think, oh, he's preaching like a cultish thing. Like, are you going to ask us to drink lemonade here at the end of the deal or something? No, I'm not. I like my life. I love my life. I'm like you. I love my life right now. I like it. I'm going to keep having joy over it. And I'm not going to ask you to have Kool-Aid at the end. But why have we worked so diligently and studied so hard? And hey, I get it. We have doctors, we have pharmacists, we have nurses, we have technicians, we have all these people that have put their entire lives into this because they just don't want people to die, and it's horrible when people die. And we just hang on with all we've got. So what does that have to do with guarding your heart? Well, I want you to know that wisdom will tell us that your heart is not that thing that pumps blood through your chest and through the rest of your body. Now, I know you've been told that. And I know that if I were to say, what's the heart, that many of you could give a much greater detail of what I could ever give you as a preacher on what is your heart. But when I study through the scriptures, what I find is that the heart is the emotional or moral nature as distinguished from the intellectual nature. The heart. Have you ever used the word heart and you said, that's really the heart of it. That's what makes it beat. That's what gives it life. Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense because it's a pump. Right? That's what gives it life. It's the pump. It's what makes everything work. Well, wisdom says that the heart is compassion, love, affection, courage, enthusiasm. Those are things that the body doesn't come with naturally. I love the fact that we can clone cows. I'm just all into that. I don't know why I think that's so cool. And probably because I grew up in the Star Trek days, when you really just had to go in and you said to the computer, you know, create this, and it created that, and food would pop out of a microwave door. And at that time we didn't have microwaves, so it was really cool. And they would just get the food there. So I love this whole idea of cloning, like, things. Life. I love the fact that we can clone life. But that is nothing more than a physiological thing. What about what makes you up? What is it that makes you who you are? Isn't it really your compassion, your love, your affection, your courage, your enthusiasm? Isn't that what makes you who you are? Isn't that what is your inner being? It's the heart of you. Not the pumping heart of you, but the heart of who you are. So, if you go to Merriam-Webster, because I love to go to Merriam-Webster. I have a 6th grade dictionary that I still love. I drew some pictures in it, and so every now and then I open that up, look at it, and think, oh man, I was, at 12 years old, I was pretty freakish. And but I love going to my Merriam-Webster dictionary, and it has for heart, one's innermost character. Wait a minute. Was Merriam-Webster, was he reading the Bible? The heart is one's innermost character. Do you know why God is so brilliant? Because He doesn't allow us to have to remember to make our heart beat. Because if that were the case, we'd all die. Because there are other things that would be more important. Friday night, I took Elizabeth out for date night, and I was so proud of myself, and I just want you all to know that. You know, I want you to know that sometimes I'm a wretched date person, but Friday night she said she wanted to go out, and so I texted her back about an hour later and said, we have reservations. That's impressive, folks. I'm just telling you. You want to get the kudos, guys, go ahead and make a reservation. Because I could have said, we made a reservation at Del Rancho. And it is okay, because it was a reservation. I did something besides just get in the truck and say, what?
Where do
you want to go?
Right or left?
Yeah, where do you want to go? Oh, yeah, right or left. We get to the end of the road, right or left. So, and we do that sometimes. But when you make a reservation, you know, she knows, well, you're special. So we get this reservation. They put us at a little table for two over on the side. Wonderful evening. We begin to order, and it's just going to be great, and all that kind of stuff. And then they set 4 people next to us, which are, you know, within like spitting range of where we are, and that's okay too. And so anyway, there's this guy sitting at the table, and I know that you've run into these people before, but he used the F word for. And I know this is going out there, so that's the reason I'll just say F word. He used the F, and he spoke as loud as I'm speaking right now. And he used the F word as a noun, a verb, and an adjective in almost every sentence. And that's impressive in some ways until it gets to be like the 25th or 30th time. Then it's not impressive anymore. I mean, think about that. For those of you that are English people, if you can actually use the F word as a noun, an adjective, and a verb in every sentence, that takes some work. And you've got to be committed. And he was. He was dedicated to his task. And so, like 5 or 6 minutes in, because, you know, I'm wanting to have this great night, it's date night and all that kind of stuff, Elizabeth says, I think I'm going to have to say something. And I'm like the person that's like, you know, in the midst of those situations, I'm the person that says, man, I don't want to go there. And so she kind of backs off, and we make a little banner about it, and then we're kind of teasing about it and that kind of stuff. And the guy just goes on and on and on. Remember, I can only live what I preach, or I can only preach what I live. I can only live when I preach. Boy, if that were the case, I would be a much better person. But I can only preach when I live, and so this is what's going on Friday night. And so this is happening, and finally, you know, it had just gone too far, and up she goes. And she walks right over to him, and she leans down quietly, and I'm not even exactly sure what she said, but it had something to do with, I think you're acting like a middle school boy, and you probably need to kind of clean that up. Something to that effect. It wasn't anything rough. Well, he did quiet down. Then he said something, because we can hear everything at that table. But then he says something else, and it went under my skin, and so I decide I'm just gonna stare. I'm gonna do the stare, and I'm gonna stare at him, and he would not look at me, and he just they were having banter at their table over what had gone on, and but he would not look at me. Clear sight of vision, not that far, because I have now taken it to a different level. Now I've taken it to a level of, I will take you out of here and I will beat you to a pulp. That's where I am, because I believe that there are times that you don't take the child to the corner and explain to them at 3 years old, this is what we don't do, and this is what we do, and this is the way you should be, and this is the way you shouldn't be. I think you take the child to the woodshed and you beat the crap out of them. That's what I think. Oh. I will have to admit, in the last 15 years, I don't think I've been to that point of, I think I've never, I said this to I've never wanted to hit somebody so bad in my whole life. I just wanted to fix this. What happened on Thursday night and what happened on Friday night really become kind of a very similar thing in regard to this guarding of my heart. On Thursday night, I so much wanted to be the preacher down on the field, but I couldn't be the preacher down on the field because I had a job to do up in the booth, and the job to do up in the booth was probably just as important. I just couldn't see it at the time. I wanted to be down there giving aid, providing comfort, and doing the things that I know that I want to do. And then I get stories later of, no, Joshua was already doing that. Elizabeth was already doing that. I look down there, the first thing that I see after we come back from commercial is Elizabeth already has her kids all rounded up. They are all holding arms and they are praying. Actually, Joshua was doing the praying, is what Elizabeth tells me, and they are praying. The Palm Squad is praying. The cheerleaders are praying. Groups all around there are praying, and that's what you do. Because intellectually you say, I need the paramedics here. I sure would like to have more life support. I'd like to get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. That's what your intellect says, but your wisdom says, you know what? I think God is probably more important in the midst of all that's going on here than everything else that we could possibly do, because that's what we can do. What does it mean to guard? It means to watch over in order to protect or control. It means to protect against danger. Or it means a person that's formally assigned to protect or control access to, like a guard. Or it's a device worn or filtered to protect or prevent injury. That's what a guard is. So think about this just a minute. What does it look like to watch over in order to protect or control our heart? Remember, our heart is not that pumping thing. It's the emotional aspect, the character of who we are. So what are you doing to guard your heart? Well, the Hebrew word for guard is natsar. And it simply means this. I know that you would love a great Hebrew term, but it simply means this: keep. your heart. I don't know if that hit you the same way it hit me, but I began to think, wait a minute, guard and keep, that's two totally different things in my aspect. One is to protect from, the other is just to hold on to. And so then I began to look and ask the question, well, wait a minute, where is Natzer used in other places? Do you know where Natzer is used in other places? When God knit you together in your mother's womb. He put you together. Keep that. Think about what it is to be a baby. I know that there are other cultures that do different things with infants, but in our culture, in what we understand and what the Hebrews understood was this. A child, innocent. Totally innocent. Born into a world of sin, absolutely. In our culture, we know that Christ has already died for that infant. So it's not a bad thing. Keep that. Keep your heart. Keep your infant heart. Keep that heart that is clean, that is pure. If something happens to an infant, what do? Sad to think of, but actually happens. If something happens to an infant, what do? Is that infant guilty? Is that infant going to heaven? No! That infant's not going to. That infant is pure, clean. Its slate it's not done anything. It is God's gift. What about our heart? I have preached many times, and I told you all on Wednesday night that I have been challenged with Proverbs like I've never been challenged before. Proverbs has just been eating my lunch over the last month. And there comes the whole thing of Wednesday night in regard to trust. Trust? Am I really trusting? Or am I just talking trust? Am I trusting the way the world trusts? Or am I trusting the way that God is offering His trust and my trust back? And so Proverbs has been eating my lunch, and so as I began to look at this Natzer and keeping my heart, I just had to simply continue to dig and dig and dig in this passage to say, what does it mean to guard your heart? And you can't understand in guarding your heart until you understand the rest of the scripture, which says, for everything comes from it. Everything in your life comes from the who of what you are. Not the what of what you are, but the who of what you are. Everything in our life comes from our character. Wisdom will tell us that everything that we deal with is a product of our character. And that's exactly what Solomon is saying to his own son that day. Keep your heart. Oh, I can teach you how to prolong your life. We can all learn how to make our heart last longer. You know, that physiological thing that pumps in our chest. Obviously, you can look at me this morning and realize I don't necessarily partake of all that good information. Or I would be 50 pounds lighter and my cholesterol wouldn't be through the roof and my blood pressure wouldn't go up when I go off my medication, and I would probably jog a lot more and all those things that would make me so much more healthy to live a much longer life. But Solomon's not concerned about longer life. He's concerned about the life we live and the character we have and the compassion that we share with others and the love and the affection and the courage and the enthusiasm for everything comes from it. Well, if everything comes from it, there's some things I need to do. For my heart is not where it should be. I've got work. I need to guard it more. If my character is affected, then one of the things that I struggle with is the fact of what I put in it. And so I'm going to share with you this morning the fact that much of our life is determined by the way that we eat. Now, I'm going to go all the way, and I love this. I'm going to say something, and when I say it, y'all are all going to think of somebody else. But I'm going to circle back to kindergarten. And I'm going to circle back to the piece of paper that was on the wall on the way out of my kindergarten class that said, "You are..." What?
What you eat.
What you eat. And there was this cool pyramid, and it had all these things on there. And the truth is, I don't think I can tell you what any of those things are today. But I can definitely tell you, you are what you eat. And so I'm going to ask you this morning, what is it that you are consuming that is hurting your heart? Not your pumping heart, your heart. The heart of who you are. What is it that you are constantly consuming that is hurting your heart? Beloved, if you will challenge yourself this morning to take a deep dive on that which you are eating in your life every day. You see, I came here this morning because I really just wanted you to be getting your butt kicked with me every day. Because that's what Proverbs has been doing. And I've been challenged. And in that challenging, I want you to be challenged. I want to coach you up. One of the reasons that I read so much about OU football is because I am much like the rest of you that have followed OU football. And you don't have to be an OU fan to have followed OU football. If you live in Oklahoma, you're going to follow OU football. I think they just eaten a whole lot of bad stuff. They've just let it consume them, and now they're reaping the rewards of what they've eaten. And I'll stand behind a guy that says, I'm growing young men. Whether we win or lose on the football team, I'm growing young men. That's a challenge. That's a battle. Because today's world has so much to eat out there that is just not good for the heart. We're Christians, right? So, hey, we've got this. You know, there's one thing about being forgiven. There's another thing about just continuing to consume the bad stuff. So if you're continuing to consume the bad stuff again and again and again and saying, yeah, but I'm Christian, so it really doesn't affect me, trust me, that you're only lying to yourself. Because your character, the who-ness of who you are, makes this life what God is choosing it to be today. Guard your heart. Solomon says, the most important thing is to guard your heart, because everything you do comes from it. Let us pray. Father, this morning, I just ask that you would allow us to take an incredible inventory of that which we are consuming. Lord, as we do that, we recognize that there are things in our lives that need to no longer go in, for it's not helping who we are. We struggle because we see the goodness of who you are. Lord, on Thursday night, as we were fighting for life, you were saying, welcome home. Lord, I ask you to continue to challenge, to continue to confront, and help me to confront those things that are keeping me from being everything you would have me be. Lord, never let it stop. And I know what that means. For in your challenging me, joy is replaced. From the bad things to the good things. And we can all be happy with where we are. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the challenge. Thank you for the journey. Thank you for the work. Thank you for the digging. Let us move forward in faith. In Jesus' name, amen.